Good people, this is the first dual chamber case from Antec, the new C8 from the Constellation series. You might say they are a little late to the party with the dual chamber configuration, but they are doing something no one else is thinking about, which makes them fashionably late. I'm honestly quite excited about Antec getting back into the case game. I mean, they're kind of legends in this space, and even though they're sponsoring this video, this is not a trap. I'll tell you everything you need to know. First, let's talk about these fans, the 160mm reversed intake fans, two installed at the bottom for absolutely insane airflow for your GPU. The blade diameter is around 150mm and they are 35mm thick, so kind of like your all-in-one fan. And the RGB looks decent too, with plenty of spill from the bottom for that underglow effect. And Antec pulled a smart one on here by absolutely opening up the entire bottom section of the enclosure, therefore removing any airflow restriction, both great for performance and acoustics. Not only does this absolutely help with GPU cooling, making this one of the best cases for a chunky hot graphics card, but the lack of restriction in the frame and this fine performance dust filter that is at the bottom means impressive acoustics throughout the whole RPM range. I mean, I wouldn't run these at like full power all the time, but you can without worry. Now the thing is, you're not married to these fans either. If you want to swap them out for something smaller, 140s and 120s, we have these additional metal strips that you can install at the bottom, both of which still take advantage of the whole open frame nature. I just wish that Antec would perhaps apply the same methodology and concept of the open frame at the top, since it can also mount 160mm fans. But if you're going, with a radiator and a set of fans, acoustics are not going to be that important if the frame at the top is slightly more restricted than it is at the bottom, since the airflow is going to be slowed down by the radiator already. And by the way, let me know if you think the total cooling capacity for a new dual chamber is good or not. So you can do triple 140s at the top and bottom, or dual 160s, and of course 360 rads on all sides simultaneously. I would say that's pretty decent, and even though you cannot remove the side fan bracket for installation outside the case, everything around it is super open, so working with it on either side is pretty straightforward. Now, the rubber grommets and how the cables exit for a standard ATX motherboard do not interfere with side cooling, and they even have this awesome airflow barrier on the opposite side to separate the rear chamber from the side intake. But I even find it more convenient to just make sure no cables enter the side intake area. So not only is it good for the visual side of things, but also for the airflow separation side of things as well. Another novel feature on the C8 is the corner where the glass meet. So each piece has this 45-degree bevel, so the visual edge is actually quite thin. It's not invisible, but I would take any attempt at hiding that corner, especially on white cases or lighter glass panels. You can see the difference between how regular glass panels meet on my Phantix enclosure versus what Antec is trying to market. It's not that significant, but it is definitely thinner. The only downside with this technique, in my opinion, is a tiny gap that forms between the two panels that is only visible when you're looking at it directly. If you're slightly at an angle from that corner, then it becomes invisible. And also check this out, absolutely minimal flexing on the corner without the panels installed. And normally this is a weak point for dual chambers, but well done Antec on a good structure out of the box. Now, accessing the interior will require the following tools: 1 or 2 strong fingers. I do like the toolless approach. It makes installation and assembly really easy. I just wish we had an option to at least secure the glass side panel to the case so it's not gonna fly open during transport or something, Although when you're shipping things, it's inside the box, and also the pegs are pretty strong. Although one thing is that the plastic clips that are inside the frame that accept the metal peg on the side panel, we don't have any extras, and I've seen case manufacturers actually include extra clips just in case they break, and over time that plastic will loosen up. So Antec, this is perhaps something you should consider. I'm mentioning this because one of my plastic clips fell out when I was removing or reinserting the panel back in place. It's easy to put the plastic clip back in place, but just in case it cracks or something, it's always good to have extras. I do love this plastic accessory box with dividers included, so you can separate all your screws as needed. Now, the porosity of the top and side mesh seems to be in line with the market right now, and it actually flexes less than my most recent experience with the North XL. And this is great because it really ties into the overall excellent feeling build quality of the C8. So when you're working with the enclosure, metal is not bending, you're not feeling like parts of the enclosure are nice and solid while others aren't. Everything feels consistent. So well done, Antec. As for storage, it is thoughtful because we have an SSD caddy right on the roof that holds 2 drives and another caddy at the very bottom with 2 more SSDs and of course our conventional drive cage at the bottom. And normally we see power supply mount at the bottom on dual chambers, but with the C8 it's at the top, and that is for a reason because it can accept side interface power supplies where the cables are not facing the traditional way but they're facing onto the side, and therefore you can still mount the power supply and have plenty of space above for your cables. That is of course if you wish to go that route, and now that I think about it, having Antec introduce this feature probably means they're gonna release a side interface power supply of their own. Maybe? Who knows? We will have 4 models available of the C8, so your standard C8 black and white for $129 without any fans, and for $159, so only a $30 premium, we have the C8 ARGB black and white models as well with 3 fans included, so those awesome reverse 160mm fans at the bottom and 140 for the rear exhaust. I also do like that the fans are already pre-routed into the hub, so you just have to connect the hub to your motherboard and a SATA port for power and you'll be good to go. Honestly, this was a really refreshing dual chamber experience. There's nothing complicated about the C8 in any way, and just assembling at least, well, I built 3 systems in the case so far and it's been seamless. Absolutely not an issue. I do love that airflow barrier beside the side intakes just so that the cables don't enter into the main chamber, which seems to be like the common issue among many other dual chamber cases because they don't cover that spot and some cables might still find their way in. And size-wise, it is perfect for being able to support 3 360 rads at the same time, having large fan support at the top and the bottom as well, without it feeling like it needs half of my room to occupy for a simple system, you know? Perhaps my only point of feedback is that the basic C8 without any fans could be slightly more competitively priced, because at $129, it just is such a good deal to just buy the ARGB model for $30 more and have really good airflow for the GPU out of the box. The other downside with dual chambers, not this case in particular, but basically every other dual chamber enclosure, is that if you don't have side intake for the CPU, then that's going to suffer a little bit. And as you can see, the CPU temperatures in my testing versus the entire stack are a little hot, like they're not chart topping like they were on the GPU side, but that is something you have to face when it comes to, you know, not having any additional intake on the CPU by default. Of course, if you have a radiator at the top, that solves the entire CPU problem, but for airflow routes, just keep that in mind. All right, so that's the new C8 from Antec. Let me know what you think. I'm Dmitry. I'll talk to you in the next video.